The meeting of the Metropolitan Council Transportation Committee for June 12th, 2023. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or additions, we can move on to the minutes. So the next order of business is approval of the May 22nd, 2023 Transportation Committee meeting minutes. Did anyone have changes or additions? Seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Morales. Is there a second?
Aye.
Councilmember Tyrone Carter. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Today, before we move on to reports, we do have somebody here who would like to address the committee. We have Ken Peters from Metro Transit, I believe. And we can take about 3 minutes or so, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't think I need 3 minutes.
Okay, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, other council members. I'm a driver for Metro Transit, and I'm coming here to address you today about a concern that you have taken up here in the Transportation Committee as well as the full council. Upper management, Metro Transit, is currently talking about this in contract negotiations, but it seems as though what we know as a traditional rush hour no longer exists here in the Twin Cities. And since ridership has been coming back after COVID, and we were kind to people and welcoming them back with a $1 ride for 2 months a year or so ago, and a lot of people still think that exists. And rush hour, I have noticed the only people on the lines that I've been driving, the only people that are paying the full $2.50 are the people with the Go-To cards, because they can't control that because the machine is set. Other people are paying cash, just get on and put in $2, and you alert them, the fare is currently $2.50 between 6 and 9 a.m. Oh, okay, well, that's all I got. And this goes on and on and on. So they're aware of it. They're just choosing not to pay it. So my thought was, I don't know, I'm not a finance man. I don't know how the finances work. But if we're losing 50 cents on every rider, it seems sensible to me with the traditional rush hour no longer being existent, that we should just eliminate it completely and just go straight flat across the board. And it would be easier for all of our customers to understand what the current fare is. So I just thought I would just come and air my opinion on it and let those of you in charge of the money talk about it and see what you thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for letting us know, and we'll make sure the information gets passed along. Appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Now we're on to reports. Our first report is MTS Services Director Cross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, council members. Much work is underway to implement the new state transportation bill. Just a few updates on a couple topics today because there's some urgent deadlines in the legislation that inform some immediate work. You'll hear an information item Wednesday on the free fare pilot program, which has implications both for regular route riders and for Metro Mobility. So I won't share details today, but at the full council meeting on Wednesday, you'll have an information item and then a business item at your next meeting. In part, this is moving quickly because the pilot project has a July 1st implementation deadline. We're also pursuing implementation work for an expansion of the Metro Mobility Premium On-Demand Taxi Program, which will offer extended hours of service in the times that Metro Mobility is not available. And so this program will expand on a pilot basis to actually provide quite a few additional hours, up to 10 or 11 p.m., depending on the day. And the bill requires a launch by September 1st. So there's immediate work underway this summer getting the pieces in place to provide that program expansion. And so we'll provide an update to you later this summer as before it launches. And then on the planning front, we're beginning stakeholder engagement with the Transportation Advisory Board's technical subcommittee on funding and programming. So one of the groups that supports the tax work, that supports the TAB. We'll be talking about another aspect of the bill, 5% of the council's portion of the new sales tax. So it's 5% of versus 95% for transit of the 83% of 3/4. Boil it down to about $25 million a year that is designated by TAB for active transportation projects, pedestrian and bicycle projects. The bill actually requires, it goes straight to TAAB to allocate and choose projects, but TAAB must, to the extent possible, align it with their process for other allocations. Well, TAAB is currently seeking public comment on the next regional solicitation. So we're kind of threading a needle here, getting the discussion going in hopes that we can, when they issue the next solicitation, be able to seek projects both for the federal funding, but also this new state funding that comes to TAAB to decide. So we'll be beginning discussion of topics like qualifying criteria, how many years that we would program, the matching fund requirements, and how it relates to the broader regional solicitation. So TAAB could consider that on July 16th after they also complete the current public engagement round of the next solicitation. The comment period is actually open until June 20th. So that'll wrap up before your next meeting, and then we'll be able to hopefully fold in the new transportation bill pieces within this. And have it go seamlessly for applicants where they can put forward their best project and not have to worry quite as much about all the minutia of the federal program or the state program. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Charles. Questions or comments, council members? All right, next we're on to our Metro Transit report, and we have Chief Operating Officer Brian Funk here.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. Again, Brian Funk, Chief Operating Officer, filling in for Interim General Manager Canderas today, and I do have a number of updates. To build on the legislative report out, as many of you recall and some know, we had a responsibility by June 1st to implement our phase 1 of the Transit Service Intervention Project, working to connect riders with resources, specifically in the area of those who need housing, substance abuse, mental health issues, and that is well underway. And so we've been working with partners, standing that up very quickly and then expanding, aiming to have a formal request for proposals to continue that by the end of the week. And so that's really good news. Allied Security, which is the supplemental non-police security services that we've been talking about, also started about June 1st at Lake Street LRT and the Franklin LRT stations. And so, so far, feedback has been positive, particularly from our employees and observations from staff who have been riding. And so we'll continue to do that, continue to provide maybe more robust feedback, including some time with the chief at a future meeting. So wanted to make sure to mention that. Then this weekend, our June 17th service changes come, and we're adding service. And so we're adding frequency and really looking forward to making that happen. A couple meetings ago, Adam Harrington and I presented some of the reasons behind that, but we're really doing well in the area of operator hiring, thanks to especially some folks in the audience today. And so we're looking to continue that. And so to that end, this last Friday night, the St. Paul Saints hosted us. We sponsored the game on Friday night. It was also Star Wars night, and so it was really fun. We had our OECC, which, as a reminder, is the Operators Engaging and Connecting with Communities tabling event right inside the front gates. And so they were able to make some connections and hand out flyers. Of course, not everybody going to a baseball game is also actively looking for a job, which is why we have staff there to be able to give them some sound bites and then ways to circle back. And so they gave me the opportunity to throw out the first pitch, and I think it was a strike. I mean, a little high in the zone, but I think I did all right, and also was able to plug both our career opportunities as well as our services, including Gold Line and B Line with the broadcast team during the second inning. And so it was a really great night for transit down at the ballpark down the street. And then finally, we have a number of events coming up between now and our next Transportation Committee meeting, just to make folks aware. So next Monday will be Juneteenth, and so we'll be well represented in Minneapolis at their Juneteenth celebration. On Wednesday next week, we're doing an internal effort that we're calling Great Day in Transit, having hundreds of shifts filled by primarily office and administrative staff to go out, be present on the platforms, engaging with our customers and frontline employees, and are really looking forward to doing that, geared towards 12 to 6 p.m., again, next Wednesday. And then finally, next weekend is Pride Weekend in Minneapolis, and so we'll be represented in the Pride March on Sunday. and over at Loring Park for those celebratory events. So. And then the last thing I have is next meeting on June 26th is our final Transportation Committee meeting here in St. Paul before we shift to the Haywood campus in Minneapolis for the second half of the year. Wanted to extend a formal offer for council members if you'd like to have a pre-Transportation Committee tour of our Green Line Operations and Maintenance Facility down next to CHS Field. And so I'll send out formal correspondence to gauge interest, and if the timing doesn't work, or I know that, for example, Councilmember Tyrone Carter has visited during Employee Appreciation Day, we'll gauge interest, make that happen, or we can do that on the side, sort of one by one. So wanted to make that announcement, and that I'll follow up after the meeting. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thanks. Questions or comments? Councilmember Chambliss.
I think it's more comments. It was a very good report. I was very happy to hear that we got $2 million of support from the legislature towards public safety issues, and listen to the video that our Chief Morales III did explaining to the community what some of the plans are, and that there is work with other entities such as the Minneapolis Downtown Council to work on making sure that everyone feels comfortable and safe on the rides, as well as in the areas where people get off and in downtown Minneapolis. So I'm looking forward to hearing more. But I also want to know, where is the Juneteenth event in Minneapolis?
Madam Chair and Council Member, I will find out. I believe we're at Broadway, and I'll find the cross street. I'll look in my phone and I'll send it out to the group so you know, because I know that our bus will be positioned to make sure that we're highly visible along Broadway, and then also providing a safe space on that block face.
Thank you.
And just a follow-up comment, at any of these events that you hear about, feel free to participate. People like to be involved, or I know Metro Transit staff likes when we're there, especially if you can participate somehow on that great day in transit. That would be great. Councilmember Carter had a question?
Yeah, I thank you for the report also, and I just wanted to call out, there's a Juneteenth event also in St. Paul at Allianz Field, and I know you want to know about that, and I hope we can hook it up so that we'll be there as well. Thank you.
Very good. Additional, Councilmember Vento, and then Cameron.
Excuse me, thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Carter, did you say Holman Field?
Allianz.
Allianz, okay, got it.
Okay, Councilmember Cameron.
I just wanted clarification on one piece. So under the public safety piece, the intervention project through the legislature, you mentioned that you'll send out a formal RFP. Could you clarify what that RFP was for?
Sure, Madam Chair and Council Members. So the RFP, my understanding is that it'll be an extension for longer-term services, that really this initial 3-week period that launched June 1st is us pulling together and making these sort of day-by-day events happen. And then the longer will be to spread that out and have more formalized relationships ongoing.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. Just a brief question regarding the engagement of the contract services at stations. Was there supposed to be something also at Central Station in St. Paul? Could you just update on that?
Madam Chair and Council Member, you're correct. The request for proposals has identified 6 locations. And so working with that selected vendor, Allied, we're starting with the 2 along LRT in Minneapolis, and then we'll then be expanding as their staffing sort of is bolstered and we gain that experience on managing the contract. But it is coming, yes.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, I have one question. So with the intervention program, how are we going to report progress, and do we have to report back to the legislature? Because I know the funding is really directed for 3 months, so I'm just really curious.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I will say I will get back to you with the formal process. I know that Interim General Manager Canderas, Chief Morales III, and Captain Greats have been organizing that and assigning a project manager to make sure that they're collating all the information so that we're able to report back as required.
All right, thank you. All right, last call, questions, comments? All right, good job on throwing out the first pitch. So nice to hear. We actually don't have a TAAC report tonight, but we do have another report coming up, which is the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee. We have Tom Waste and Andrew Brody here to present. Some of this, for our new council members, some of this happened before you came on, some of it you voted on right away when you joined. But one of the requests we made as the groups were presenting to our committees was to provide us quarterly reports. And so this is the first of them, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, council members. Andrew Brody, Director of Rail and Bus Safety, also co-chair of the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee. Pronoun is he, him, his, and with me is...
Madam Chair, council members, name's Tom Waste. I am a non-revenue mechanic for Metro Transit.
So a couple of things just to update you on, and a few of you are new. So we did complete late February, early March, revision 5 of both the bus agency safety plan and the light rail agency safety plan. That was the first order of business because that had funding associated with it, so we got to work, and we're meeting weekly to get that completed, and we reached an agreement, got those, like I said, completed early March. From there, the committee was meeting monthly, but we decided that that wasn't enough. There was work to be done, so the committee voted, and we're currently actually meeting bi-weekly, so that has changed, and we just feel that there's enough out there that we will be busy for a long time. The understanding is that if we don't have to meet, we will look at that and cancel it. It's easier to cancel than to put additional meetings on people's calendars. So we're moving forward with the bi-weeklies. I believe we started that a few weeks ago now, about a month ago. We did a couple meetings, or actually it was last meeting. Bylaws? Yeah, it was last meeting, so not last week, but the week prior. We finished completing the bylaws. That's currently with General Manager Canderas and a final review of that. So hopefully we can get those squared away and get those posted. Our next steps, we actually meet this Thursday, and we're going to go through a safety management system process of a near miss that we had with our light rail system. So just to get all the committee members an idea of what the safety department does and the mitigation strategies that go into place, that those mitigation strategies will be presented to the committee in the future to frontline employees to see if there's anything we're missing. And that's what the FTA is really looking for us to do, to get that frontline buy-in, to ensure that the mitigation strategies that we come up with are either efficient or not, and we need to make adjustments to those accordingly to the frontline employees' comments and concerns. So the next steps are the training things, and then shortly thereafter we're going to look at transit worker assaults, as that is a priority for us, as mentioned a little bit already in this meeting with security and safety concerns along the line. So work is being done, and we're moving forward, and I think we have a good path forward. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Tom?
No, that pretty much touches everything.
With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Very good, thank you. And I will turn to questions just in a quick second. I just want to say I'm really glad to hear what I'm feeling is very collaborative and moving forward progress. I think that's great. And I love that you're taking real world examples and going through and talking about those, because, you know, that's really what matters the most is to prevent these incidents from happening. So I'm really happy to hear that. All right, to questions for Councilmember Chambliss.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I would like to know with the bi-weekly meetings, if it's possible for us to get a written report. You know, if you're meeting more often, I'd maybe like to get a summary of what was discussed at least. And then regarding the LRT near miss, I'm assuming that was when the systems were down for a couple hours. Is that, or could you clarify that?
Madam Chair, council member, reports, we can definitely look into that. I mean, we do have meeting minutes that we take, and those are posted on a team site, so that's something that we could share amongst, if that suffices, of a report. And then as far as the near miss, no, this actually happened earlier this year, and it had to do with communication error of what track was out of service and what wasn't. So something that it was caught, engineering individual caught it and prevented an accident from occurring, and the operator too as well, recognizing and stopping immediately. So again, it's just one of those things that happened, and we need to stop and take a look at our policies and procedures. And we did that. We halted all out of track work, and then looked at our procedures, looked at what happened, looked at our communication, and are on a path forward here, so.
All right, additional questions or comments? Councilmember Cameron?
Just building off of that, is there a formal reporting mechanism for operators or engineers on near misses? Or is that up to individuals to report that back?
Madam Chair and Council Member, yes, there is. We have a formal hazard report that we have for all employees, and also not well marketed yet, but we do have an anonymous reporting through Ethics Point as well that we've tagged on to. Good question.
Thank you. All right, anything additional? Just to follow up, one other thing, another tour I'd highly recommend is to go ride in one of the cabs of the light rails. You get a very different perspective on what our operators see every day. And definitely, I would say ride both lines because it's different. And so I think, you know, I cannot tell you how helpful that was for me to do. I have one question if there's no others. All right, when do you guys expect to start working on the next version of the agency safety plan?
You know, probably sooner rather than later, I would guess. Hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure, by the end.
Hopefully by the end of the year, we'd have something ready to bring to this committee and then to the council.
Very good. All right, anything else? All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, tonight, now we're on to business. There's no items on consent. We have 4 business items. The first one is business item 2023-102, which is a joint committee meeting, or business item, and we have Ed Petrie and Heather Giesel here. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Ed Petrie, Director of Finance, Metro Transit.
Hi, Heather Giesel, Director of Finance for Metropolitan Transportation Services.
And we're here to present the second quarter budget amendment. This is the second of 4 that you'll hear this year. We'll go through the information. I'll go through the Metro Transit portion first, go through our capital and operating, take any questions, then hand it over to Heather. That's okay, Chair?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Okay, as I said, this is our second quarter budget amendment. It's one of our larger amendments. We generally have 2 large amendments during the year. This is the first one. And then the next amendment that will come forward in the third quarter will be one of the other larger ones, because we're right now, a lot of the items this evening are our local funded projects. We're right now in the process of processing all of our 5307 formula grants right now with the FTA. We should have those within the next month or so. We will then bring those projects with those grants with the third quarter budget amendment. So a lot of the projects you're seeing this evening are projects that are going to be locally funded, and or we have the pre-award authority to move those projects forward. So I will go through the Metro Transit portion. First of all, within the amendment, we have a number of projects that we're actually closing. You will see this every single quarter, that Heather and I will come forward. As projects are finishing, we will then close a project out. If there's any available funding, we'll then look at the scope of the grant and transfer to other like projects so we can completely spend out the grant. But we have a number of projects that we are closing. But the largest portion of the amendment this evening for both of us is brand new authorized projects. These are projects that were in the CIP that the council adopted back in December. Funding is now available, and now we're recommending bringing those projects forward into the capital budget. And what I'm gonna do is I will go through a few of the large projects and just kind of talk generally about some of the other projects. First of all, for the G line, we're bringing in $3.6 million of local funds. This would be for project development, staff time, engineering, and working on some of the agreements. The big piece is we're bringing in $100 million of CRISA federal relief funds for the Green Line extension. That was approved by the Department of Labor and the FTA about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So now we're bringing those monies for the project. The balance of the projects for Metro Transit, there's a number of them that were in the CIP. They include items for like fare collection equipment, including replacement of fare boxes and some of our cash counting equipment. Bus replacement of 8 40-foot and 1 articulated bus. We have some LRT power switch upgrades. We have some LRT track work and rail replacement, facility energy enhancements, the purchase of non-revenue vehicles, which would include vans, police cars, and some supervisor vehicles. We purchase those every year based upon a state of good repair. We had track work replacement and bridge maintenance, and support facilities and facility improvements. So with that, that pretty well gives you the blend and the flavor of the projects within the Metro Transit portion of the capital amendment. And I would recommend, or I would ask for any questions at this time before I move on to operations.
Councilmember Cameron?
Could you walk us through, as a new council member, it would be really helpful if you walked us through the process of how these projects were selected for the budget proposal. I know you mentioned that there was approval in the CIP last year, but you're going to kind of need to walk us through that process as well. We have a limited amount of time, so I mean, an overview, if you could.
Yes, and I will say before we're about in 2 weeks to embark on the budget planning for next year. So you'll get to see a front row seat to everything because we start the committee process earlier than the rest of the council. So, yeah. All right, turn it back to Ed.
And Chair Committee members, I guess I can speak to the portion of what we do at Metro Transit.
Yeah.
First of all, Brian and I, Mr. Funk and I, and 2 other individuals, we're part of an executive committee at Metro Transit. What we do is, first of all, from the finance side, I will work with my staff and we will then forecast out the revenues that we think we will have for the next 6 years, whether it's local funds or the various federal buckets, like 5307, 5337, state of good repair, both bus and rail, and then there's 5339, which is bus and bus facilities. We'll forecast those out for the next 6 years. So based upon, I always call it the checkbook. Based upon our forecasted checkbook then, we then go back to all the respective project managers and ask them for their capital requests. Those would include like bus purchases, repairing of track, repairing of facilities, non-revenue vehicles, fare collection equipment, all those different types of capital needs. We then will look at those projects, first of all, compare it to the checkbook and see how much are we over or under. But the second step that we'll also do is then look at maintaining our assets into a state of good repair. First of all, we all know that first of all, purchasing buses is the reason we're here. We have to purchase the buses to maintain our buses into a state of good repair so we can maintain service. We have to repair the track and our facilities. So though all those state of good repair items are foremost for the dollars. After we've gone through all those and gone through our committee, decided these are the ones that we want to move forward with, we will then look if there's any remaining dollars, and then from those we will then identify additional I don't want to say nice projects, but projects that are outside of the state of good repair for new capital items. We will then bring that list to the council then and let the council know these are the projects. We also have, you'll hear a term called Table 3 and Table 3A. Table 3 are the projects that we recommend for funding in the CIP based upon our forecasted cash flows. We also then will have a table called Table 3A, which are projects that are very nice to have, we think have a lot of merit, but as of the point when we bring it forward to the council, we don't have available funding. Those projects are nice to have though, for example, if we have the ability to go to the counties, go to the state, or come up with if there's some additional unique federal projects or federal funding that comes forward, like a LONO grant or something like that, we can point to our Table 3A of, yeah, we have this want or this need here, we can use it for that type of funding. So that's kind of the process that we go through. And then as we move forward with the capital amendments, we will bring the projects forward. For example, let's say we have a project in there for a bus purchase. Let's say we say it's $8 million in the CIP. When we finite and finalize what that actual purchase might be, it may be $8 million, it may be 8.2, or it may be 7.4. Whatever it is, we will then bring it to the council with the exact amount that we do need. And then if it's over what we wanted, then that's part of what I work with my grants department to make sure that we are balanced within the CIP. So I don't know if that was probably a long-winded
No,
explanation.
that was actually an excellent answer, so thank you, yeah.
And like the chair mentioned too, we are beginning our work now on our capital improvement process, CIP process moving forward for the 24 through 29 cycle.
Right, additional questions? All right, very good.
Okay, then I will move on. Then we have Metro Transit as one item on the operating side. We're going to be recognizing an additional $50 million in federal relief funds based upon eligible expenses in our bus operations. If you recall, the council received $735 million worth of federal relief money, of which the biggest portion, about 685 of that, remained with the council. We're spending that over the next 2 to 3 years. We should spend that through, I believe it is through early 2025. But we're also looking at if we have enough eligible expenses where we can spend a little more in 2023. And we do. We're forecasting we should have enough, about $50 million of eligible qualified expenses for those federal grants to pull that money in 2023. What it'll do is we'll bring the dollars in, and it'll go into our reserves. We will then use those monies in 2024. One of the reasons we're doing that, to be very transparent with the council also, is the fact is that with the debt ceiling discussions that were happening at Washington over the last couple months, there was concern of whether or not they would pull any unobligated or unspent funds from the federal relief. So we have the ability to pull an additional $50 million in. We're going to pull it in. To make sure that it's then safe, we'll just put it into reserves.
Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. So federal relief, are those the COVID funds?
Chair committee members, that is correct. We receive CARES, CRISA, and ARP funds. So we just call it federal relief, but it is the COVID funds.
Okay. And is that going to cause any kind of shortfall once those disappear?
Chair committee members, it will not, because what will happen is, like I said, instead of parsing the dollars out for future years, we're just pulling an additional $50 million in 2023, and we'll put it into the bus operations reserves to be used for next year then.
And just for a little context, I'd like to add that, we were moving towards a structural deficit. We've been, had thankfully, the federal relief funds, which helped us extend that out. And now we've had legislation that instead of getting one-time funding, we have ongoing funding, which will help take care of our structural deficit. We still have lots of, like as Brian and Charlie both, we're still figuring out a lot of this, but that is one thing that we do know, which is actually an incredible relief from some of the things we've had to deal with in the past.
That is correct.
Thank you. All right, additional questions? All right, turn it back to you guys, Heather.
Madam Chair, committee members. So overall, this amendment is relatively routine for MTS. I'll start with the capital budget first. The main component is that this brings in just over $4 million in RTC for the suburban opt-out providers. So every year, the transit providers in the region, Metro Transit, MTS, and the STPs enter information into the National Transit Database. And the inputs are used to develop the region's annual 5307 allocation. This formula was then a principle for a formula that was adopted by the council back in 2001 to allocate RTC funding to the STPs. So the council programs RTC as a way to defederalize the STP project expenses, thereby reducing administrative burden for both the council and the suburban transit providers. So we bring these funds into the authorized capital program as a lump sum into an undesignated account for each transit provider. The STPs can then draw down these funds via grant agreements once projects are identified, and you'll see these specific projects in the current and future budget amendments. So by putting funds in the undesignated account, we eliminate the need for the STPs to wait for a budget amendment every time they identify a project for which they want to use their RTC funds. In addition to the funding for the STPs, staff has identified 27 projects totaling $13.1 million that are in our authorized capital program that are fully expended and can be closed. The remaining RTC from these projects will be repurposed and made available for existing or future projects. So that is the capital side of things.
All right.
Stand for any questions on that.
Questions or comments? All right, back to you.
And then on the operating side of our amendment, we're authorizing $518,000 in motor vehicle sales tax revenues to be transferred from the contracted services operating budget to the capital program, and an equal amount in federal funds to be transferred from the capital program to the contracted services operating budget. MVES funds are used in the capital program for engines, transmission, midlife vehicle rehabs, and suburban transit provider projects that are not eligible to be funded with regional bonds. The dollar for dollar exchange of funds has no impact on regional MVEST allocations, MVEST reserves, or planned capital projects. And so I can stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-102. JT.
Motion to approve?
Moved by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tony Carter. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Thank you both.
Thank you.
We're on to our second business item, which is business item 2023-112, which is resiliency training contract, and we have Dan Stoffer here to present.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Dan Stoffer. I'm the manager of instruction for Metro Transit. You can call me Dan, and I go by he and him. I'm really honored and privileged to be here today to talk to you about a really serious topic, and that is resiliency training for frontline employees. I'm also here to hopefully get your support on providing a contract that we can move forward with. And that will be with a company called Red Kite, and I'll explain who they are here shortly. As you know, there's a lot of negative trends that are going on right now in the world, and specifically with our frontline employees here in our own backyard at Metro Transit. In 2020, Metro Transit reports a 29% increase in crime on our public in our transit ways. We also have this increased perception about Metro Transit and other transit industries all around America that transit isn't as safe as it used to be. In a recent nationwide survey, 75% of transit workers said that they are afraid of coming to work because they feel like they may be assaulted. One of the things that we're all experiencing in this post-COVID era is shortages of things. And one of the areas that is affecting these challenges is that we have a shortage of social service employees to support those people that are homeless and those people that are mentally ill and combating substance abuse. Because we deal with the public, a lot of folks that are in those categories ride transit to get around the Twin Cities. And that creates a real big challenge for frontline employees. How to deal with folks. Do they have any skills and ability to handle the challenges that they bring aboard our vehicles? And sometimes the answer is they don't have those skills and abilities. And so what that causes is stress, and stress causes burnout. And what you end up having is you have a lot of people that call in sick, or you have a lot of people that take a lot of vacation or burn their rec time, not because they want to go out and enjoy life, but it's because they've had it up to here and they need a break. So Metro Transit needs to build employee resilience to combat these challenges. We need to help our frontline employees gain skills and knowledge to overcome these challenges. When we look at bus drivers and train drivers and public facility workers, we often think of transit. But I would like to challenge our thought a little bit and have us think about that they are counselors on wheels. They are social service personnel on wheels. They are also first responders on wheels. And when you start to think about it, that really is the truth. When transit workers are prepared, like anybody, with the challenges that come forward, they become more resilient and they're able to handle those situations and they're able to enjoy their work and get more self-satisfaction out of their work. We did a nationwide search for companies that work in the resilience area, employer resilience area, and we found a great company, and their company is called the Red Kite Project. The Red Kite Project is a human capital development firm helping organization increase resiliency to employees to get more productivity, less absenteeism and turnover rates, and a decrease in customer complaints, operator assaults, and violations. The Red Kite Project has been in business since 2008, specifically in the transit world since 2010. And to date, the updated statistics is that they have trained nearly 8,000 people in the transit world. They are a certified female-owned business. Their certification comes through the Women Business Enterprise National Council. I'm here today to get your support so that we can move forward by offering a 4-year contract to the Red Kite Project. The training would include bus and rail operators and other frontline employees and management staff. We would also be developing an online refresher course so that after you get your initial training, 8 to 10 months down the road, we can send you through an online refresher course so things don't slip out of short-term memory and get locked into long-term memory. We received, as we were out searching for a company, we received 3 proposals from different companies. We created a panel, and the panel looked at the quality of the proposer, the qualifications, the experience, the price, and if they were able to deliver their product that supports Metro Transit's training requirements. And we found as a panel that Red Kite was the clear leader in those areas. Red Kite is the most advantageous to the Met Council, and it is our recommendation to award them the contract. What I would like to have you entertain is that the Met Council authorizes the regional administrator to negotiate and execute the contract 22P186 with the Red Kite Project to provide training services in the amount of $1,806,723. At this point, I can entertain any questions you have about the Red Kite or about our training program.
Very good, thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Councilmember Cameron.
Yeah. I have 2 questions. I'm really, we've been talking about public safety in this meeting, and I think I'm really glad to see that we're focusing on support on staff resiliency and some of the other components that go with safety. That it's not simply the physical safety, but it's also some other aspects of seeing them as an entire person on our staff. And so I really appreciate seeing this proposal come forward. I have 2 questions. I think my first question is around the Red Kite Project. Have they worked with other major transportation systems around the country? I know you mentioned they had really impressive statistics in terms of the number of operators, but have they worked with an entire system before?
Yes, Madam Chair and Council Member, they have. They have worked with Raleigh and Durham and Philadelphia. The Philadelphia system is called SEPTA. They are currently working with Milwaukee. They are working with Gardenia out of Los Angeles, G Transit. They are working with Charlotte, North Carolina. Their system is called CATS. They are also working with non-transit companies such as Children's Hospital out of Philadelphia and Penn Medicine.
And then.
Thank you. Yep, Councilmember Cameron.
My second question was really around the services that they provide regarding resiliency. So some of the things that you outlined in terms of support services are really significant issues when it comes to how we can support our staff, issues that really speak to the heart of mental health support services and in this issue of resiliency. And so I guess, is the focus of this work around resiliency, is it on the preventative side or is it on intervention side? You know, what the kind of the, I don't know if you would call it a curriculum or what they walk people through, where are they in the process? And then if it is on the prevention, kind of building out that scaffolding to handle these situations, then what services do we provide on the intervention side? So once someone has experienced an issue, where do they turn?
Yeah, really good questions. Madam Chair and Council member, yes, it is about identifying an employee that is struggling and trying to get that person help before they get burned out. So it is about prevention. When somebody is burnt out, we have different areas that we can put that person through. One of the things we have is our EAP Sand Creek, and we can ask to have them intervene. We also have our peer support program that is a really good program to help somebody rise up. And one thing that I want to make sure that everybody knows too is through our apprenticeship program, which is a 2-year apprenticeship training program, we do a lot with mental health. Red Kite is about the mental health of the employee. We also contract with a company called People's Incorporated out of Bloomington. And People's Incorporated is about the mental health of our clientele. How do you handle somebody that gets on your bus that is maybe in a mental health crisis? And what are some things you can do to de-escalate that situation and still provide service, but without getting hooked into maybe a challenging situation? So Red Kite it's all about the operator, the train operator, the bus operator, the public facility maintenance person, and it's about them and their mental health status. We are looking for a 3-day course that will provide about 24 hours of training is what our hope is.
Okay, Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for this information and for bringing the request forward, acknowledging that we need to support those who are doing this very, very important work by providing the training and skills that they need. I'm impressed at the manner in which the resiliency training bullets actually describe this work as human service professionals. You know, we used to think that bus drivers needed to know how to drive and, needed to know about engines and things of that sort. But they need to know about people, and so much more of our professions are becoming linked to the need to know about people. At the same time, I still have thought of it as a bus driver role, so it was rather surprising to me to see that here. I'm thankful we're being very, very deliberate about providing the training that's needed. You describe it as resiliency. It's entitled Resiliency. It is clearly about the health and the ability of our drivers to connect to people in these spaces. But it's also about very specific skills that are related to being, as you say, a human service professional. I'm wanting to know if you can track that back for me through the human resources area to help me to understand the extent to which, as when we're looking for these professionals, we are looking for drivers and describing the work as a driving job, or we're looking for human service professionals and pairing the ability for someone to have the kinds of skills and knowledge. And I realize you're not talking to me about that job posting or the job description today, but I am very curious as to whether you can track back for me who we're looking for and how we're describing this work in this day and time.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Council Member, another really good, insightful question, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible. Want to paint a picture real quick. I think you're spot on with the way you described how training used to be. When I got to the training center in 2008, it was really a one-legged stool. It was all about safety of driving. Aim high, get the big picture, leave yourself an out, and that's very, very important. But as we went down this journey, we started to say, you know what, how about the customer? And so we started to do a lot of customer service training, and so that we could learn a little bit about, or have our employees learn about disabled customers and how do you de-escalate situations. And then we started to think, you know what, it's still an off-balance stool. It's still not balanced. We need a third leg, and the third leg is about the operator. And when you think about it, they're all linked. If you aren't taking care of yourself and you're about ready to snap because you're burnt out, you're going to be crabby to that customer that gets on your bus. And if you're crabby to that customer that jumps on your bus, they're going to probably give you some flack back. And then you're going to drive that bus a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more tense. And so they're clearly weaved. And because now we have that three-legged approach, our stool is balanced, and we're taking care of the employee, the customer, and the driving safely. Now, how are we handling this in pre-employment? We are doing a lot of different things that have happened, and we're wanting to do some more. So in our interview process, we have tweaked our interview questions to not only say, hey, let's look at your work history and see how many accidents you've been in, but let's ask you about some pretty in-depth questions about the human part of it. And that's our first step in the interview process. Some people don't make it through that interview process because they answer those questions incorrectly. The thing that we want to do is with Red Kite, we would like to consult with them and have them look over our interview process to make sure that our interview questions and our philosophies are matching what they're teaching in the class. And so that's the next piece on the chessboard, if you will, where Red Kite will be our consultant on hiring those people that are able to handle these challenging issues.
Just to add on, if I might.
Councilmember?
To consider that we may also want to look back at, given what we are observing as a reality and the needs for that balance, we may want to look back at what we're describing in the job and what we're looking for, not just from the interview, but from the description as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and a committeeman or a council member, yeah, that's really good. Yeah, let's take it even back and have Red Kite look through the job posting to see if it aligns with our philosophy. Thank you for that.
I'm not suggesting that it doesn't, but it just occurs to me.
Right. Any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Chambliss?
Yeah, so the contract is for 4 years, plus they have an online refresher course. I'm assuming that once you take their 3 days of training, you have access at any time to do the refresher course. Is there anything besides the online refresher course after the 3 days of training? And how much training is anticipated over that 4-year time period?
Madam Chair and council member, the anticipated training would be, they would be at Metro Transit once a month for 6 days. So they usually, what we're hoping that they do is they do a 3-day course, and then they'll have a day off, and then do a 3-day course with a new group of operators. So that is how I'd answer that. The other things that happen as far as training goes, you go to initial Red Kite, and then you'll have your online refresher course through the apprenticeship program. It's actually part of one of our levels. And some folks, meaning operators, have come back to Red Kite a couple of times because they find themselves, even though with, they dug themselves out of that proverbial hole and they feel good about themselves, and now they're gonna have this online course to take. But it's not a one-time deal, that people do fall back and they start to get burnt out again based on the clientele that they're dealing with. And so we can put them back into Red Kite to gain more skills and abilities from that point.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Vento.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan, this is an excellent report. I'm curious about a couple of things. One is, not all people are going to necessarily show signs of stress and burnout. Can I self-report? Can I say, hey, I want to be a part of this program up front? I mean,
Yeah, Madam Chair and Council Member, yes. You
Okay.
can, we would like to have the assistant managers who work directly with you are able to send you potentially based on what they see and observe. But it is a volunteer program, and so if you feel like you need it, you can go to them as well.
All right, Councilmember Carter.
Well, and
Oh, yeah, go
I had
ahead,
a couple more. Secondly, you said that it includes bus and rail operators, other frontline workers, and management. Does it also include our customer service staff?
Madam Chair and Council Member, we are primarily right now focused on bus and rail operators, public facility, because they're out on the platforms and dealing with a lot as well. When I talk about others, we're talking about transit control center supervisors, customer service, people that answer the phone and get yelled at or challenged, and anybody that is in that challenging environment, we would be able to work with.
Good. And then I just have one
Councilmember
more
Vento.
question, if I can remember it. And I can't, so I'm done.
All right, Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I just had a question. You mentioned that you were gonna try to align the job descriptions. So would you be looking at some of the entities that have successfully used Red Kite and look at their KSAs to find out if you're misaligned, or maybe you already are in line somewhat?
Madam Chair and Council Member, I think that definitely would be part of the consulting that we would look at with Red Kite. I think that they would probably want to bring in their experience from the other groups that they work with. So, yeah, very good.
Councilmember Vento.
I thought of it. Thank you. Does this include Metro Mobility operators?
Madam Chair and Council Member, it does not.
Okay. I'd encourage us to think about the possibility of Red Kite or something similar for Metro Mobility as well. I think that just from the limited experience I've had with riders in my district, I sometimes get a little stressed with those phone conversations and being on the receiving end of, angst and anger and all the other stuff. And I can imagine that for those operators and for the frontline staff who work with the scheduling, it's got to be stressful.
Director Carlson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Bento, it's a great suggestion. We work with our contractors on, what their needs may be. They do, they obviously as contractors for this service have the responsibility to support their staff in that way.
True, yeah.
There is quite a bit of additional training and really perspective training that goes into the skill set of a Metro Mobility driver as opposed to other services. There is a higher standard of both training as well as other expectations. So, but also a great suggestion on how can we support them to keep, both the skill set up to par, but also the retention and avoid the burnout.
All right, any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Cameron.
I just want to revisit the big picture here and maybe throw down the gauntlet and say that, it's a reminder that we're having this conversation because of the challenges we're facing on our system. And so it's a reminder to all of us that as a council, we need to be incredibly responsive to the environment within which our employees are working. Not that, I think this is a great program and we should continue to keep it, but we also need to improve the environment within which they're working around all these different areas that have come up from other council members. And so it's a reminder to all of us that this is our problem to resolve for them. And so I do want to mention that as well.
Actually, thank you for your comments, because it's always been an important part of our work, but clearly, this is something that is a really big part of what we're going to be doing over the next year. And so the more that we can all be collaborative and talk and get the issues out and actually have good conversations about it, I think the better off we'll be. So, all right, additional questions or comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-112.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vento. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Tony Carter. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we're on to business item 2023-121, which is the same week item. It's the Metro Gold Line Bus Rapid Transit Electric Bus and Charger Purchase. And we have Jeremiah Riter, Carrie, Desmond, and Jody, Jacoby here to present. Welcome all.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Jeremiah Riter. I'm the Assistant Director of Bus Maintenance for Metro Transit.
Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Desmond. I'm the Manager of Electric Bus Infrastructure for Metro Transit. My pronouns are she, her, and you can call me Carrie.
Good afternoon. My name is Jody, Jacoby, and I'm the Director of Procurement.
Right, so you, Madam Chair and committee members, as I stated before, Jeremiah Riter. My pronouns are he, him. You can address me by Jeremiah. Today I'm here to present on business item 2023-121, Metro Gold Line Bus Rapid Transit, which is the same week item due to extended lead times for infrastructure and chargers. The proposed action is to authorize the regional administrator to exercise purchase options utilizing the state of Washington's master contract to purchase 5 60-foot electric buses and 5 electric chargers for the Metro Gold Line Bus Rapid Transit project in the amount not to exceed $10,844,000. A brief overview of the Gold Line. Gold Line is a 10-mile transit way that the council has executed a fully funding grant agreement with the FTA on April 4th of 2023. We've received all federal funds and local funding for the project of $505 million. Gold Line is a frequent all-day service operating primarily in bus-only lanes. And the budget is $505 million, 10 miles and 16 new stations, 17 BRT branded 60-foot buses, 12 of which are diesel and 5 are electric. BRT upgrades to the East Metro Garage in St. Paul. There'll be 3 surface park and rides and 1 parking structure, and 8 grade separated BRT crossings. Fleet and route considerations. So in this, there's the price, the actual cost for a 60-foot diesel bus is just under $1 million, and the estimated cost for an electric bus is $1.9 million. The range for a full tank of fuel is 358 miles, and a full charge is estimated at a usable range of 91 miles. Route considerations, service will be provided by the combination of diesel and electric buses. The service plan includes 5 electric buses and 12 diesel buses. Based on the range, the electric buses will be planned for 9 trips per day, and the diesel buses will be closer to 38. The goal is to continue to gain experience as described in our zero emissions bus transition plan. As you can see here, one of our 8 60-foot electric buses that we're currently operating.
So just a little bit of background on our zero-emission bus transition plan and the guiding principles. This should look fairly familiar, as they're very similar to what you heard in April this spring from MTS about their transition plan. They have one additional guiding principle, but we're really focused on 3 pillars here. The first one being technical viability, learning how this new emerging technology operates in our environment, where it's a good fit for our service, and we can continue to provide that reliable transit service that our riders depend on. From there, focusing on equity and environmental justice. So during plan development, we had an extensive public engagement process. We asked the community, how should we prioritize where these buses are deployed first? Because we recognize that this transition will take time, but also pairing that with education. Understanding what are the complexities with operating this new technology and how do we balance these different factors. So again, we're going back to that core mission of reliable service for our customers. And then finally, the fiscal impact. You heard the price differential from Jeremiah just a moment ago. So balancing that higher capital upfront expense with our available resources, and also looking at what's the operating cost as we continue to learn so that we can operate within our means. So the other piece here is, again, just kind of broader refresher on the transition plan. What goals did we set within it? Gold Line is a named project in the transition plan where we mentioned the 5 electric buses and chargers we're here to present to you all today. And then from there, the focus is primarily on gaining experience with 40-foot buses and regular route service. So you'll be hearing more from us later this year on that. But over the next 5 years, focusing on at least 20% of our 40-foot bus replacement purchases being electric. And we paired that with a number of other commitments. So really looking at our performance measures and how do we report out on and assess with data and tell our story of how is this new technology performing in our environment. And focusing that on coming back to you all at least once a year. So we're close in that effort. Anticipate coming back here shortly to show how things have been going and what story does the data tell as we continue to gain experience. But not just doing that with you all, doing it with the public as well. We've got a very engaged community, advocates, stakeholders, riders that want to know what we're up to and how this is going. So also sharing that information more broadly. And then taking that data to really look at how does that influence our budget planning. You heard from our finance director earlier about the budget amendment, but also our process going forward. So taking that information in as we look to plan out our budgets for future years and really striving to continuously improve. It's, again, emerging technology. We know we have a lot to learn, so this is another step for us to gain that experience. So the last piece here, this graphic helps depict some of the different pieces that are involved with this. There's a lot more than just the bus that we're used to and the diesel pumps that we're used to as we do this transition. It's working with Excel closely as our partner to get the power from the grid, install new transformers, new meters, new panel boards, so kind of like your circuit breakers in your house or apartment, but much, much larger. And then connecting that to the power cabinets that ultimately provide that power to the bus. So we're lining up all these different pieces as we look at improvements to our East Metro garage where these buses will operate.
I'm here to talk a little bit about the cooperative procurement venture that we're utilizing for this procurement. This may be something new to some of the newer council members. I just want to explain a little bit about the history, what is a cooperative procurement venture, and some of the benefits specifically with this one. And so we're utilizing the state of Washington's cooperative procurement venture. And procurement, along with the business unit, are always looking for ways to be more efficient and effective with our process to deliver the service that we need. And it's especially important with this type of procurement As indicated, it's very specialized and it's still very new technology. And with ordering a limited number of buses, we were looking for some volume purchasing that we could take advantage of. And cooperative purchasing is a tool to provide effective and a best value solution not only for the business unit, but also for the taxpayers. And with this specific cooperative, there's really some volume discounts, again, buying a smaller quantity, but leveraging that volume with another public agency that we're going to be receiving some significant price breaks. And again, partnering with another agency saves a significant amount of time, overhead, and other costs to ensure that we get the vehicle quickly. Just some of the benefits in utilizing this specific contract, again, is saving time. Buying buses is considering a rolling stock procurement, and we use a request for proposal or a best value procurement. But it takes a long time. It takes a long time to write very detailed specifications, and then it's a very lengthy evaluation process with many different panel members representing the different units to ensure that we're getting quality proposals. And just on average, a rolling stock procurement takes about 6 to 9 months, generally about 9 months' time. So utilizing this procurement saves a significant amount of time. It also saves us a lot of money. And that, again, is one of the powerful benefits of leveraging our procurement with other public agency partners, is being able to utilize some volume discounts and have more purchasing power. It also gave us the connection with top suppliers around the country. The state of Washington contract includes many different bus manufacturers or bus integrators, as they call themselves, because they're integrating multiple technology systems into one bus. And this procurement is also unique because it not only includes the buses, it includes the chargers. So we're able to issue one contract for both of those very important needs. It delivers an ongoing value. There is much more attention from the state of Washington coordinating hundreds of vehicles. If an issue does come up, we're able to get much better service in addressing any concerns that we have along the way. And this contract is very unique because it is FAST Act compliant, meaning that we can use funds from the Federal Transit Administration. And that's something very unique with federal funds, that federal terms and conditions need to be included at the time the solicitation is issued. And the only exclusion is for the state cooperative procurement venture. But our state of Minnesota cooperatives don't have electric vehicles on it. Last fall, the council approved a joint powers agreement to allow the Metropolitan Council and the state of Washington, who both can procure vehicles on their own, to jointly enter into an agreement to share power to utilize this procurement opportunity and this cooperative. So that's some of the many values and benefits that the council is able to take advantage of immediately by using a cooperative.
So with that, the action proposed. Action proposed is that the Metro Council authorizes the regional administrator to exercise bus purchase options utilizing the state of Washington's master contract with New Flyer of America Incorporated to purchase 5 60-foot electric buses and 5 electric bus chargers for for the Metro Gold Line Bus Rapid Transit project in the amount not to exceed $10 million, or $10,844,000. Questions?
Very good, thank you. And just a quick note to council members, these 60-foot electric buses from New Flyer are also what we have operating on part of our C line. So it's blends well with our fleet so far. So Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentations. That was very informative. It's very encouraging and exciting to be a part of this emerging transportation option. My question is, for the Washington cooperative with the multiple suppliers across the U.S., what does it look like in terms of, you know, if we have a supply chain crunch, where do we fit in terms of, you know, the pecking order? Do we have leverage because of the number of electric vehicles that we have? Or, you know, do we have any concerns about competing with other folks that are getting their supplies from this cooperative?
Madam Chair, council members, we have much more leverage in being part of this very large contract. And so I see it as definitely a great opportunity for us, because they're going to want to be fulfilling the orders from the state of Washington. They're going to be much more attentive to that because of the quantities from that contract. So we have a lot more leverage to ensure and have those conversations with, in this example, buying with New Flyer. So those vehicles will be made in St. Cloud, but be able to make sure that our production timelines and deadlines are fulfilled.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. One other question, and that's about the learning that we would gain from this 60-foot option for the future 40-foot electric buses. How does that translate in terms of how do we learn from a larger bus to the smaller bus? I would, you know, I mean, I know that there's some limitations the larger that the bus is, but we're looking at purchasing smaller buses. So can you explain that?
Certainly. I think, you know, something we strive to do in the transition plan was look at it as a program of projects. And with each project, there's unique learning objectives that add up to greater experience of all the different applications within our service territory. So by way of example, C-Line gave us experience with arterial bus rapid transit, with 60-foot buses, with en-route charging. So we had that combination charging strategy between en-route and back at the garage. The Gold Line gives us experience with dedicated guideway bus rapid transit, experience with charging only at the garage in that environment. And with subsequent business items, you're going to see focused on 40-foot and regular route service. That's kind of our bread and butter of the majority of our service is that 40-foot. But there's lots of different ingredients we need to gain experience in to understand where does this technology fit best based on where it's at today. Where do we need to see it mature down the road as we continue this transition to understand kind of all the pieces of the puzzle. So I would encourage folks to think about it as it's a piece of the puzzle, but we have to put all the pieces together and not it's one or the other.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional questions, comments? Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I had a question. I know we talked about the capital costs, but I was just wondering, could you give us a picture of the yearly operating costs of the diesel versus the electric so we can kind of see? I know it's not all about the savings, but I just wanted to have an idea.
That's something we're continuing, Chair and Council Member, something we're continuing to track as we're learning what those operating costs are. There's a few different pieces to it. So one that we track closely is the fuel cost and how does that cost per mile compare between the diesel and the electric. And we've seen over the 4 years of operating C-Line that it's been roughly double the cost per mile for the electricity compared to the diesel fuel. But that's looking at it over time on average. We also see a lot of volatility in the diesel prices versus more stability in the electric prices. So when you get into budget planning and that budget certainty versus the volatility, so there's trade-offs there. We're very much still in our warranty period for different things, so a lot of the maintenance costs are being actually paid for by the manufacturers. So that's a piece that we don't have as much data on at this point in time. But we recognize, not only here at Metro Transit, but more on a national landscape as an industry, that this is something we need to wrap our arms around and understand better, because we don't have an agency in the country yet that has taken one of these electric buses through its full life cycle. So projecting what are those operating costs over the full life cycle is something that we're all looking to learn together and trying, as agencies are at different points in the journey, different points in the battery life cycle or the charger maintenance cycle, learning from each other of what does that look like.
And I guess the other question is, what is the, if we go 10 years down the road, what is the amount of buses do they estimate we're going to be using in terms of electric buses?
So, Chair and Council Member, our transition plan focuses on a 5-year look ahead to start through 2027, and that's related to the state statute where we're required to update the plan every 5 years with the legislature. So at the time we were developing it, less than 1% of our fleet was electric. And that really ties back to what I was talking about with learning objectives with the different projects of what do we know we don't know yet at this point in time to be able to really project out further. But our focus over the short term here is on what can we do with a 1-for-1 replacement and gain more experience there to understand what is truly the range of these vehicles and what other strategies may we need to employ down the road for those more challenging use cases to transition where the piece of work for the vehicle is longer, for example, and the range doesn't suffice. So are there other combinations like on-route charging or other propulsion technologies in the future that we'll need to employ? But at this point, we're trying to gain more experience with where the technology's at today, where can we put it in without having to change our service to fit what the technology is capable of.
Okay, I've ridden on, I don't know if this is the same bus, on one of the electric buses, and it was great. And as a science teacher, I'm glad to see you guys are moving in this direction.
All right, any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Morales.
Have you guys looked into other bus companies' electric vehicles? Because I mean, 91 miles to the charge is 1.3% of the trips per mile compared to the diesel, which isn't really much. And there are other bus companies that have between 300 to 400 mile range for their electric vehicles.
Madam Chair and Council Member, so we have New Flyer was and is currently the only manufacturer that is Buy America compliant. So for using federal funds, we have to go with somebody that's Buy America compliant.
And if I can just add to that, Chair and Council Member, that's specific to 60-foot buses. There are more manufacturers in the 40-foot space, and so that's something where we do have a defined strategy in our transition plan to try several manufacturers to understand how they all work in our service environment and some of the differences between them. The other thing that I'll say we have to be mindful of is there's what manufacturers publish known as the nameplate range. So if you were to use every drop of energy on that vehicle and be at an empty tank, if you will, coming back, what can it do? But then there's what we have to plan for our service environment, so that usable range to make sure that we're preserving the life of the battery. There's a little bit of charge we leave at the bottom, at the top of the tank, if you will, and also having some reserves so that if anything goes out on the road, which, you know, surprises happen all the time in the real world, that we have enough state of charge to get all of our passengers where they need to go and back to the garage at the end of the day.
All right, additional questions or comments? Councilmember Cameron.
I did have a question that built off of Councilmember Carter's question around operating costs, and you addressed a lot of it with your comments around maintenance costs for these vehicles. I guess the only outstanding part that I wanted to ask is, and it may not be for you to address, but as we are expanding our fleet, I would just add that, we should be thinking about how we are training our maintenance and facility staff to work around these vehicles. And I think as we're looking at different options to purchase for our fleet, that we're making sure that we're consistent so that we're not setting up that staff to fail as they have 10 different types of buses out in our system that they need to repair. So I just want to add those comments in as well.
Very good. Additional questions, comments? I don't have any, but just a couple of things for council members. Our zero emissions bus transition plan for Metro Transit, I encourage you guys to take a look at that. You need another thing to read, right? The ones. I do know, I've been a new council member before, so I know it's a lot, but it's very helpful because it's a really good practical look at how we can actually do this, taking into consideration what's on the market, what the electrical grid can handle, what our facilities can handle, and all of that. It's very well thought out, and I think so there's a really good strategy behind all of this. The other thing that I found really interesting when we were looking at the zero emissions bus plan is looking at some of the work that the city of Toronto and their transit service has done, because they've got similar climate conditions to us, and so they're a really good reference to look at what works and what doesn't work. And I know Carrie is very fluent in all and looks at that a lot, so but I found that really helpful when I was doing some of my research on this. So all right, one last call. Any questions, comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-121, same week.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Morales, seconds by Councilmember Vento. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Thank you. All right, we are on to our final business item tonight, which is 2023-130, electronic validation token transit mobile ticket. And we have Dennis Dworshak here to present.
Madam Chair, council members. I'm Dennis Dworshak, Senior Manager, Revenue Operations at Metro Transit. Proposed item for this business item is the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute a sole source contract 23P077 with Token Transit to provide electronic validation for mobile app tickets, including project management assistance in coordination with the Farebox vendor GenFare, in the amount not to exceed $711,000. Metro Transit is now in a position to incorporate electronic validation on our fare boxes now. We had a regional solicitation grant approved, which allowed us to accelerate the purchase of these new style fare boxes. These new style fare boxes have a feature on them that allow us to validate the mobile app tickets that we have right now. Currently, the mobile app tickets it's a very manual process. The customers will come onto the bus that will show the operator these mobile app, and the operator has to manually validate this ticket. Is it a real ticket or is it not a real ticket? And then they have to go to the fare box, so they have to manually punch in on the keypad that this is a valid ticket, and then it tracks it that way. What we are able to do now with the installation of these new style fare boxes, which have this feature that we would like to turn on, this is a collaborative effort between the mobile app, which is Token Transit, and our GenFare, which is the vendor that purchases the fare boxes. The cost is fair and reasonable. It was included in the cost of the initial contract that we had with Token Transit, but we didn't turn this feature on because we didn't have enough fare boxes in the system. And now we would like to add this feature to the system so it helps both the customers and the operators. And it also gives us a lot more information, a lot of data that we don't collect currently right now, where the customers are getting on the buses, whether it's original boarding, whether it's a transfer, and some other data that we would like to collect. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this. I just started using mobile apps to get in the parking ramps. I'm assuming that this works a little bit similar, where you just kind of hold it in front of the fare box, and then it will, recognize that you've already paid, or how does that work?
Madam Chair, Council Member, yes, that's exactly how it would be. There's a small window on the face of the fare box that you could just tap. Once we get the system installed, it's going to take us a few months to program this into the system, but once you get it installed, you'll have a QR code that's visually on the mobile app ticket. You will just tap it on the fare box, and then the operator will be able to tell whether it's a valid ticket or not a valid ticket. So yeah, it's instantly validated right as you tap it onto the fare box.
Okay, then one more question. So can you use your phone as well for, or can you use both a ticket and the phone, or just the ticket?
Madam Chair, council members, this feature right now is only for a mobile app, for a phone ticket that's on there for tapping it. When we have the rest of our tickets, you can use the slide, the magnetic slide that you do that we have on our new style fare boxes also, which is a new feature on the new style fare boxes too, where the transfers can just slide across instead of dunking them in. But yes, this one's only going to be for the mobile app. This feature that we'll be turning on.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I was just wondering what other cities are using this and what kind of reaction did they receive?
Madam Chair, council members, yes, we do have this. This is being used in Florida and in Texas and some other agencies, and we have talked to them, and they're in very favor of it. The customers really like it, and the operators, especially the bus operators, really like this feature where they don't have to look at everybody's cell phone. They can just tap it, and then they will get a visual validation. And then on the back end, our data that we receive is much better. We can track the mobile app tickets, where they were purchased and where they were used, original boarding, or if there's a transfer ticket. Right now, we get very little information other than activating the ticket. That's really about the only information that we really get in the back end. So this is a very good feature that we'll be able to have.
Are you going to be offering an incentive to get people kind of on board with this, or will it just be the status, the way things are done?
Madam Chair, council members, as of right now, this is just going to be a new upgrade that we'll do to our existing system.
Okay.
It's a three-year contract.
Any additional questions or comments, Councilmember Morales?
I think you guys have looked into the security of the app, so that way someone can't just take a screenshot of that QR code and pass it on to the next person?
Madam Chair, Councilmember, that's a very good question, and that's one reason why we're also accelerating this feature, because our existing app right now is vulnerable to that, and we have had that in the past. But this one here, it has a changing barcode. So the barcode that you have on there will be changing about every 30 seconds. So if you do screenshot it, send it to someone else, it won't be valid for very long.
Okay, that's a great question. Additional questions or comments? Yeah. Councilmember Carter.
More for information for me. I do note the funding here is that it's fully funded in 67-10. So is that a general category for which you budget forward and then fit projects in as they come? And should I anticipate then that fare box collection is that category or something of that sort? Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
I think, yeah, so it was everything, like, what does the reference to project 67210 mean?
Madam Chair, Councilmember, you're exactly right. This is the general category that we use for fare collection.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
I thought you were going, what's she talking about?
No.
All right, any additional questions or comments? All right, so the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute sole source contract 23P077 with Token Transit to provide electronic validation for mobile app tickets, including project planning assistance in coordination with GenFare and ticket design in an amount not to exceed $711,000. I'd entertain a motion to approve the business item.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Tony Carter, seconded by Councilmember Morales. Is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. All right, and that concludes our business for tonight. For the new council members, all of the budget amendments go non-consent to the full council. And then, because item 3 is the same week, it'll also go non-consent, but I would propose that business items 2 and 4 can go on the consent agenda. There's no objection? Very good. A couple of quick things. We talked a little bit about it during the budget thing. On the 26th, we do have a pretty hefty agenda likely, with the big thing being the first conversations about next year's budget. So if you can let us know if you're not going to be available, it's kind of pushing up to the 4th of July, so I just want to put it out there. And if you can't make it, let us know. We'll make sure everyone gets some briefing and information on it. And then, as Brian had mentioned, we're shifting over to Haywood at the beginning of July. And so we'll make sure everyone knows where to go, where to park, all that good stuff, because you get to learn something brand new. But it's a nice way that we can do it, because MTS staff is housed here, Metro Transit staff is housed over there, so they only have to travel half the year. So, all right, anything else? Very good. All right, with that, we're adjourned.